Good evening, everyone. Welcome
Hey.
to our March 2024. Can you believe March 2024? Oh my gosh.
No, I cannot believe it.
Book club discussion. We are so excited for our book club discussion tonight. We are going to be discussing a love song for Ricki Wilde with the amazingly talented Tia Williams. We are excited. We know you guys are excited. We felt the electricity and excitement all week. We've loved all your posts. So without further ado, let's get to it because y'all aren't here for us. But just in case you don't know, I'm Lisa. I'm here with my co-host Brenda, and we're going to be
Hello.
leading you through this discussion tonight. So Brenda, do you want to introduce our special guest?
Yes, I am ready to jump right in, Lisa. And if you're a new book club member and this is your first night, put that in the chat. Put that in the comments. Okay, tonight we're talking to Tia Williams, who is a graduate of the University of Virginia and had a 15-year career as a beauty editor for magazines including Elle, Glamour, Lucky, Teen People, and Essence. In 2004, she pioneered the beauty blog industry with her site, and I love this title, Shake Your Beauty. She's the best-selling author of Accidental Diva, the It Chick series, and The Perfect Find, now a Netflix film starring Gabrielle Union. Her last novel, prior to this one, was 7 Days in June and was an instant New York Times bestseller and a Reese's Book Club pick. And, which we need to ask her about, a TV series adaptation is in development with Will Packer Productions. Tia
Love,
lives with her
love.
daughter and husband in Brooklyn, and we're here to talk with her today about her fabulous new release, A Love Song for Ricki Wilde. Welcome, Tia.
Welcome, Tia. We're so excited.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited too.
Well, we really are. I have got to tell you, Tia, this book, it was in a word breathtaking. I mean, unexpected, steamy, magical, tragic, exhilarating, all bundled up into one big package. Our readers have been mesmerized, and we've had so much wonderful feedback. And they've had some questions, but we'll get to those in a moment. For those watching who haven't read it, Tia's going to give you a summary of her book, and we will have spoilers after 7:15. So if you haven't read the book, stay with us until 7:15, and then come back and watch the recording. We'll give the spoiler warning. But right now, Tia, could you give us a summary?
Yes, spoiler free. The
Mhm.
the story I've been calling it a modern fairy tale, and it's about a woman who's the youngest of four sisters and a very rigid aristocratic Southern family that made their wealth over the last 100 years in the funeral home business. And she's expected to go into the business like her siblings and like her parents. And the only thing she's ever liked about funerals are the flowers. She's obsessed with floral design. So she divorces her family. They think she's a fool for wanting to go into flowers. And she moves to Harlem to open her own flower shop. While she's there, she falls madly in love with this very mysterious musician. They have a chance meeting in a garden, kind of a secret garden. And it turns out their lives are intertwined in all of these enigmatic, surprising ways that have something to do with a scandal that went down in Harlem during the Harlem Renaissance in the 1920s. So there's some time hoppy stuff, a little bit of magical realism, and a lot of steam.
There is.
We
And we'll
love
talk about
we
that
love
probably
the
later.
steam. Mary in the chat says, "You have me at steamy. I can't wait to read this." So she's watching to hear about it. There you go, Mary. You better hurry up.
Love it, Mary.
Lisa, I think you had a question about this lovely cover.
Yes. And actually, I'm pulling a question from the chat
Oh, I'm sorry. I
as well.
jumped
No,
ahead, but I
yes,
love
it's
this cover so much.
me
You.
too. Well, the
that I
question
wanted
from
to
the
ask.
chat is part of the cover too.
Good. Okay.
So it's a two-part question. The first part is, how much input did you have on this beautiful cover? And
Hmm.
the second part is, was there a casting for these two beautiful models, or was it someone that you know? Which I love that. I didn't even think to ask that second part.
That's a good question. I'm always interested in people's covers and where they come from. And because it's very hit or miss. If you're in traditional publishing, there's a whole design department. And depending on which house you're with, sometimes you don't have that much of a say. Um, but at Grand Central, they definitely ask for author input. What do you have anything on your vision board? Is there anything you were thinking? And I told them the same thing I told them with 7 Days in June, which is that I want Black Love to look iconic, like, a film poster, like something someone would hang on the wall. You walk into a bookstore, you don't have to know anything about this book, but you need it just based on and this is what she came up with. Um, there was like an orangey version, um, a yellowish red kind of ombre version, and then this purpley blue. And we decided, because it takes place in February, it's a winter book, that the sort of the sheeniness of the blue and the purple makes it look a little colder. Yeah, so that's where it came from. And the it's actually a photograph
Oh,
that the
Did not
art
like
director.
that.
Yeah, the art director has, all sorts of contacts, and found this really, really beautiful photograph, contacted the photographer, and, we got permission to use it. And then they layered designs on top of it.
wow. That's awesome. Well, I have to say, if you were going for iconic Black love, I can't think of a better cover. Like, it's so good. So that's amazing.
Thank
Thank you
you.
for sharing that.
Yes, thank you. You mentioned in the summary that Ricki is this kind of her family considers her as going rogue. She's not following in the family business, and she has loved flowers all her life. So, one of our readers, Edie Cohen, wants to know, do you have a favorite floral bouquet?
It's funny. I don't know flowers very well. This is all.
Really? Because you would never know that.
Well, it's
No.
true. That's a compliment, because this is deep, deep research. I've been saying on tour, I did not grow up in a flower house. Some people just grow up with parent like moms, or that sort of
Yeah.
know flowers. I didn't know that at all. I came to the floral world through fragrance. So in my other life, I'm a beauty writer. And when I first started thinking about the concept of Ricki Wilde, I was executive editorial director at Estee Lauder Companies. And so a huge part of my job was writing ad copy for fragrances, for perfumes. And in order to do that, obviously, you need to understand the notes that go into these perfumes. And so I was on calls with, Parisian fragrance houses like twice a week, with them explaining to me, the specific floral notes, and where these flowers are cultivated, and their special properties. And one of them had night blooming jasmine in it. And as the Parisian perfumer explained to me, it's this flower that, is asleep all day, and then at midnight it blooms and exudes this intoxicating scent. And then when the sun rises, it closes up again. And I was like, that is the most magical, outrageously just sensual thing I've ever heard of. And I was like, that's it. My protagonist is going to be a florist. So yeah, I came to flowers through perfume. So
Oh,
I don't have a
wow.
That's awesome.
yeah, I don't really have a favorite bouquet. Everything that I wrote about in the book came from interviews with actual florists. So yeah.
That is so cool.
It's
You pulled that
amazing.
off pretty well. I would have never known that you didn't know flowers. I don't know flowers either.
Me neither.
Flowers
One of
and
the things,
cars. I
oh,
don't know. I can't like point out what a car brand or like a flower.
oh, me either. I have three descriptions of cars. I'm like a Civic type car, fancy type car, or an SUV type car. Like
That's all.
that's it. Those are my three.
Exactly.
I love it.
One of the things that I wanted to ask, in the dedication for the book, and me and Brenda were talking about this yesterday, and we love this. It says for my eighth grade teacher, Mr. Marchese, at Osterholz American Junior League High School in Osterholz, Germany. He told me I was destined to write novels, and I believed him. So the question is, what was the best advice that he gave you? And how cool it is that you dedicated your book to your eighth grade teacher. Like, we love that.
I loved him so much and I can't find him. I have gone on
Oh,
Facebook groups. I've got, we've lost touch, and this is a school on an American Army base in Germany, and the base doesn't even exist anymore. So
Oh,
it's
wow.
I don't know if he's ever going to see this, but
I hope he does.
I
he
know we
does.
need to, you guys do it. Get your
Yeah,
hats on and
Yes.
start
get out the
searching.
troops.
We have 30,000 members, you guys. You guys can help. Let's find him.
So he told me that side characters and villains don't know they're not the star. And so you have to treat them like they're protagonists, in that you have to know everything about them, give them a fully fleshed backstory. Even if they're walking on for 2 pages, you, the author, should know everything about them. And that's how I approach, all of the secondary characters. It's like they walked over into this book from the book where they're the protagonist, you know.
Wow. That's great
That is really
advice.
wise. Yeah, very wise advice. That's amazing. Wow. Well, guys, we have reached the 7:15 mark. If you have not read the book, turn the volume down or tune us in later with the recording, because we're going to get to some talk about plot. And the first thing I would like to ask you, Tia, I know that when you were on Friends in Fiction, the main page, you talked about your origin story with this idea, but now you can talk spoilers. So I wondered if you would revisit it and tell us a little bit more about how the idea came to you and how you fleshed it out.
Yeah. So like I said on the main page that I have insomnia, and I was up late one night and I was literally just visited by all of these disparate concepts that didn't seem to link at all. It's like haunted piano, um, Harlem Renaissance curse, voodoo had to be in there. It had to be leap year, a florist running away from home, um, and pop music. It was like, how in the world am I going to pull all of this together? Um, but to me, that's the fun part of it was almost like a creative writing exercise. Here are 5 plot points, figure it out. Like that part is really fun. Um, and I've always been, one of my niche interests is the Harlem Renaissance, and I'm not a straight up like historic romance writer or historic fiction writer. And so I could never see myself setting an entire book in a different time. So I figured out a way to get in the Harlem Renaissance by having this curse happen to him then. I always knew he was going to be immortal. I just didn't know when the curse was going to happen. And that's where, I'm obsessed with the Renaissance and they're in Harlem. So let's, have like a backstory happening like in my favorite time in history. Yeah. And I read somewhere when I was researching pianists that in the teens and 20s, the guy on the piano at a party was basically the DJ. So it was like the person who's like the keeper of the vibe, always looking at the room, feeling everyone out, knowing what they want, knowing what song comes next, and all of that. And if you think about DJs at a club or whatever, like they're the center of it all.
Mhm.
And I just thought to myself, like, what happens to that guy when he loses that and no one remembers who he is? And, that opened up a lot of storyline as well. So
Love that. Our next question is from Dawn in the chat. She wants to know, is Ms. Della close to anyone in your life? And she absolutely loves Miss Della. And I have to say, we've had so many comments about Miss Della and how people love her. Everyone loves her. She's definitely a beloved character.
love her too. I grew up with a Miss Della. I was lucky enough to have both of my great grandmothers. One died when I was 9, but the other one lived until I was in my teens, and like sharp till the end, like Miss Della. And it's such a gift to have, these elders in your life. And whenever I see an older person, I don't really see an old person. I kind of see a young person that aged. I always am so curious about who they were 40 years ago, 60 years ago. And it was important to the story, I felt, because Ricki left home. She shows up in this town where she knows literally no one. So I wanted for her to have a found family. And so I gave her a proxy grandmother in Miss Della and a proxy sister in Tuesday. So it was important to me to show that she found her people. And this is actually, sometimes sometimes your real family is your chosen family. And Miss Della, I was inspired. I was like, who is she? I was trying to get some inspiration beyond just, the elder maternal figures in my life. And I was on Instagram and I saw on my For You page this happy birthday post for this gorgeous, glamorous 94-year-old lady. And I was like, who is it? She had on like a red shift dress and this like wavy gray bob. Like, what is this? It was Jackie Robinson's widow, who is still alive.
Wow.
And I went down this rabbit hole, and she was a civil rights activist and all of these things, but she was living in the shadow of her iconic husband. And so I kind of got the idea of Miss Della, who had such a rich interior life, but she was living in the shadow of her iconic husband, which women did in those days.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's kind of where it came from.
Wow. That's awesome. We're gonna have to look her up after this. I want to see her. That's amazing.
Absolutely. And while I know Lisa's checking more questions from the chat, but I think that the comment that you made about how you look at people, how you look at older people is so interesting, because you gave that trait to Ezra in his moving through time, because he had that exact trait. He saw people as they were younger and older. And so that's just fascinating to me, that that's how it manifested itself in your book.
Mm-hmm. That just hit me. Yes, that's exactly right. Really think about that, but yeah, it's true, and it's all a matter of perspective. Like when people, I was on one tour stop, and this adorable like early 20s woman was like, "Oh my God, I gave my mom Ricki Wilde, and I was so nervous for her to read it because of the sex scenes. I didn't know what she was going to think. She's like 52 years old, and I was like, young lady, I'm 48. Like, what do you mean she's 52? Like, she's not what do you like? What does that even mean? Like,
Right.
and she was like, oh, but she's a different kind of 52-year-old. And I was like, believe me, she isn't. You just can't see it because you're just seeing your mom.
Right.
Oh,
Oh
she's
my
mom.
God.
She's mom.
Yeah, because she's mom. You don't ever want to think about, yeah. That's so funny.
She's 52.
Well, speaking of, we were going to touch on this later, but since you brought up the sex scenes, one of the questions, which the steam in this book was fabulous. Um, and a lot of our members, we have a couple of writers in our group. So, what advice would you give to a writer that's attempting to write a steamy scene?
I have a few things. First of all, okay, it depends on the kind of book you're writing. If you're writing, hardcore erotica or like PWP, porn with plot, it doesn't, you know, you can just, it doesn't have to have anything to do with the story. It could just be exciting, athletic, inventive sex for the sake of it. But if it's in, a contemporary romance like this one, um, I think it's important that the scenes are propulsive and they move the narrative forward. And there has to be something that you're learning about the characters or some stakes that are set, or, I don't see the sex scenes as dropping out of the sky. It's any other piece, it's any other chapter, it's any other, beat in the story. It just, is spicy. I also would not recommend writing them in public. Um, and
That sounds like there's a story behind that.
just save it, just not a Starbucks. Um, and try not to get embarrassed, because that'll hold you back. If you're thinking about who's going to see this, or how people are going to take it, that's going to mess you up. Just stay in it, stay with your characters, and don't get weird, because it's easy to get weird. Oh my God,
Yeah,
I'm going to see this.
yeah. I can only imagine. Yeah,
Oh
but
my
you did a
goodness,
great
that's
job with it. So,
Thank you.
you did, and it still had the same sort of, I don't know, transcendental quality that the time shift had. I don't know, I'm not expressing myself very well, but it was very sort of magical at the same time.
Oh wow, I was going for that, so
yeah.
that's good.
Yay! Um, well, I did want to ask you, too, Tia, about Ricki. We talked about this a little bit earlier, but we've talked about how she was kind of the misfit of her family. And early on in the book, I thought this was going to be kind of in a way modern Cinderella story, which I guess it has some elements of, you
Yeah.
know. Um, that turned out to be not so much the case, but I just wanted to ask you about her aristocratic family that you mentioned earlier, because I was just so livid with them, I have to tell you,
Yeah.
with the way that they were treating her. How did you bring their values, their traits to life in the plot?
Yeah, well, I think I really wanted to get into ideas of Black excellence and who gets to define it, what it means, and how so often it can be something that is constricting and limiting, because there's so many ways to be excellent. And sometimes in these families where success has been measured by this very specific metric, um, and there's all these signifiers of this excellent life you're supposed to have. There's Martha's Vineyard, there's um, all the elite clubs, there's the McMansions, there's the right schools, like all of that. Um, which is great if that's your choice, but if you're not into it and you're pushed into it to please your family or to please, society's idea of what, what aspirational life is, then you're going to be miserable. And Ricki just couldn't fit her circle into that square. And I am more like her sisters in that I come from the same generation as her sisters, and it was very like, you check off these boxes and your life will be perfect, and there just was no room for any rogue ideas. And I've always been envious of the women who were like, well, I'm not doing it that way. I'm doing it this way. Um, and so I wanted to really write a character who was the opposite of me, because I never would have left everything I've ever known to go open a flower shop in somebody's brownstone in New York.
Wow. Well, she was
Yeah.
definitely adventurous.
Mhm.
Yeah, I found that very admirable about her. I loved that she was able to go for her dreams instead of just sticking to what was expected of her. Um, yeah, I loved that aspect. I felt like she was very admirable for that.
Yeah. And they thought she was the meek one or the one to not stand up for herself, but that certainly didn't turn out to be the case. And I would love to hear later a little bit about how you project their family going forward. But right now we have a special guest coming on to ask you a question about a love song for Ricki Wilde. And it is Ron Block, our rock star librarian who does the podcast for Friends in Fiction on the main page and our happy hours with us from time to time. So, welcome, Ron.
Hey,
He's
Ron.
coming. He's coming.
It's coming.
He's coming. There he is.
Hey, it was on pause. Hello, Tia.
Hi, Ron.
Oh, sure. Bring me on after all the sex talk.
You can take
Well,
it.
That was unplanned. It was to be later.
It's
I
okay.
couldn't wait. I couldn't wait.
Lisa went rogue.
No, it's okay. So one of the things I love about your book and books in general is creating a space, a time, and you focus so much on Harlem Renaissance, and the stops there. How did you go about incorporating all those elements of Harlem into the book?
So Harlem Renaissance is like really one of my nerdy interests. So
You
I
go.
actually didn't have to do a ton of research. Like I've already done it my whole life. Like I've read all the books, I've watched, yeah, I just,
That's awesome.
I could talk about it for hours. Um, in fact, there's so much great juicy information about some of the luminaries of the time that I just wanted to have hanging out in the background or have people walking through scenes, but it was too much. What I didn't really know though was Harlem itself, like modern Harlem. So I've lived in Brooklyn for 27 years, and when you talk to people who aren't in New York and you're like, you know Brooklyn and Harlem are so far apart and have nothing to do with each other. And yeah, it's both New York, but people are like, what do you mean? It's New York City. I've maybe been to Harlem 5 times in the whole time I've lived in New York. And it was
Wow.
yeah. At one point I dated a guy that lived in Harlem and it was like a long distance relationship. So I
love it.
Yeah, I had to like go on the subway and go up there and walk around and like a tourist. And I found online this nightlife map of 1920s Harlem.
No
With
way.
like all the addresses, like the speakeasies, the cabarets, where the famous people lived, even like the after hours spots that were secret. And so I was going to these addresses and I would be like so let down because it's like, oh, this world famous cabaret is a Walgreens now. Or like, I would see on the side of some nondescript building, oh yeah, Billie Holiday was discovered here in 1926, singing at age 4.
Wow.
Anyway, but
just little thing.
yeah, a little thing,
Yeah.
have a great day. And I'm just like, it was this weird thing that was happening. Like the past would sneak up on you, in these like subtle ways. And it almost felt like Pompeii, like a city on top of a city, like simmering underneath was all of this magic and all these memories. And yeah, that really helped inspire the story of the, past and present intermingling.
Well, it did such a great job. I mean, I've never lived in New York, and I've only visited Harlem a few times, but it felt real. I mean, it felt like so real, and you were there. And that's one of the things that draws me into a book. And I think probably I saw in the chat beforehand, there was a lot of other people that had questions about Harlem and
Mm.
things, how it influences the story so much. It made it very deep. So
Yeah.
congratulations on the book, and wow, all the success you're getting and raves, and I love it.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
So well deserved.
Definitely, definitely.
Yes.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yes, well, have
Thanks
fun.
so much, Ron,
All
for
right.
Yeah, thanks
joining
for
us
popping
tonight.
in.
Yeah, take care.
Take care.
Bye.
I love it
We
when
love
Ron
Ron.
pops in.
Yeah.
Great.
Um,
Oh, well, Tia, I think you sort of answered this question, but with the nightlife map, but were all the landmarks real in your book, in your novel? Okay,
Yes.
I thought they
And
certainly seemed real.
yeah, and their
yeah,
location. Yeah, it's all real.
very cool. Well, a little bit more, just one more touch on the Harlem part. We have a question from Estelle, and she says she loved the Harlem Renaissance time period in the book. Are there other authors whose works inspired you or helped you learn about that time? And she'd love any book recommendations set in that time period if you have any.
Oh my gosh, anything by Langston Hughes, County Cullen, Nella Larson, who wrote Passing, which was actually a movie a couple last year.
Yes, that was great film.
Oh, so good. And then there's a historical nonfiction that reads like a novel. It's called Zora and Langston, or Langston and Zora. It's an amazing book that just talks about the really juicy relationship between Langston Hughes and Zora Neale Hurston, who were obviously two of the most important writers of the era, and they were also best friends, and they had a very tumultuous dramatic relationship. So that's a really good one, and it gives a lot of color about the time. Yeah.
Amazing. Um, I have a question that I have been dying to ask since you were on Friends in Fiction, the main page. So they asked you about casting for this book, and you mentioned John David Washington, which I was screaming at the screen when I was watching because I can't think of anything more perfect. Not just because I have a huge crush, he's like a little crush,
Right.
but, and you also mentioned Journey Smollett, which
Yes.
is also amazing. Like, I was like, oh my God, yes, this is the best casting. Or, well, dream casting or whatever. We're not. But so my question is, who would you cast for Miss Della and Tuesday? Or do you
So
have ideas for those characters?
yes, so someone brought this up on the tour, and I was kicking myself that I hadn't thought about it. Leslie Uggams for Miss Stella. Look her up. You will. She is
Oh,
so iconic. She's a singer and an actress. She's beautiful and elegant and glamorous. Um, Tuesday, I haven't really thought about. I mean, Kiki Palmer would be hilarious,
oh
actually.
my gosh, she would be. She
Yeah.
would be great.
Oops,
Awesome.
Dream Team.
I
Yeah.
know. It sounds like a dream team. Yeah.
Well, I
Brenda?
would love,
Okay.
yeah, I would love to ask, because this book was so complicated, both in the timeline and the interweaving of the people and their situations. So I was just curious, what was the most difficult scene for you to write? And how did, well, I guess two questions. What was the most difficult scene, and were there any surprises as you wrote it in the plot?
Yeah, I think the most difficult scene was the rooftop at the end.
Ah,
Um, because I didn't really know how to do it. I knew what I had to do, but I didn't know how to write it. And is it going to be schmaltzy? And it had to feel grounded in reality and not, and then I had to balance the Mistella of it all, happening downstairs. It was actually, I'm sweating just thinking about it. It was really, it was hard to pull that together.
It's over. It's over.
You did it. You did it well.
It was hard. Yeah.
Well,
I have a question. Oh, go.
Yeah, go ahead,
Sorry, there's
Lisa.
a slight delay. I'm sorry. There's a slight delay.
No, that's okay.
I have a question from the chat. Michelle would like to know, how did you come up with the idea for perennials?
So every time I'm asked this, I don't know how to answer because it just came to me. Like it really just came to me. I was like, oh, what if he's just like, continuously alive, but like not in a vampire way. Not a ghost. He's alive. He's not, The Walking Dead. And then I
No
just
zombies.
not a zombie. Like, and so I just started thinking about what the mythology would be if I had to make up like, this like race of people, and race isn't the right word, or this like, if I had to make, this like classification. And, I'm pretty well versed in vampire lore. So there's a lot in that world I kind of could use as a jumping off point. And yeah, I just had fun making it up. Never get sick, never look old, people forget you after a couple weeks.
Well, and it's a botanical, right? It's a botanical term, so it was just perfect.
Yeah, and the term is only perennials because Marvel has the Eternals, somebody else has Immortals. Like I was trying to find like a good word, and then perennials came to me, and then it happened to be perfect because of the, botanicals. Yeah.
Wow.
Perfect. Love that.
Well, I am really interested too in there are just some really key moments, in the novel. And I know we're we're doing spoilers, so I'm not going to hold back, but I'm curious about our book club members. What were the most kind of shocking moments for you when you read the book? And then we'll talk. I'm going to share one of mine, but in the meantime, could y'all share some in the comments? I was absolutely just bumfuzzled when Felice flung herself off of the roof. And it was just like, and I just don't even know what to say. Lisa, how did you feel?
I mean, I was the same. I was like, I don't know about bumfuzzles.
I'm puzzled.
I'm teasing you, Brenda. Brenda has the best
you
words.
wouldn't say bumfuzzle.
I have my like list of Brenda's cool words that she says that I've never heard, and I'm adding that to it. Like, I love that. I think for me, my scene was the solo piano scene was like, that was a little for me. I was like, okay, girl. Woof.
It's funny because I've been calling that the piano-gasm scene.
Yeah.
And on one of the tour stops, I wish I could remember. This has been a whirlwind, by the way. 16 cities. Like I just got home. I'm still getting acclimated. But someone said they had been calling it the piano scene. Like
the piano. Well, because I've been, I watched on Friends and Fiction, and I have seen some things online. It wasn't a spoiler, but I kept hearing like, well, there's this piano scene and this piano scene. And it just wasn't what I was expecting. So I was like, oh okay.
I was one of the people saying, Lisa, there's a piano scene, because I was a little bit ahead of her in the reading.
I love
And then
it.
I text Brenda, I was like, girl, I just got to the piano scene. Woo!
I don't think enough solo scenes are written.
I agree. I agree. And I think that that's something that people should not be, they shouldn't shy away from it or be embarrassed about. It's a part of life. It's a part of sexuality. So I think that was great that you included that in the book. And it was a piano or piano-gasm, however you want to call it. See. Yeah.
And
Let's see.
speaking
There
of
is a
key
bit of a
moments,
delay. So
yeah,
we'll see.
as people are responding, I'll ask another question, because the time that I was up and cheering in the book was when Ricki told her sisters to get out of her house. I was just like, yes.
Yeah. I like that.
That
And
was
then-
awesome.
Yeah, it was time.
Yeah. Oh, it was definitely time. And Ezra was trying so hard to, to be the gentleman that he was and work through the scene. But I just loved it.
That was fun to write. The sisters were so awful.
Yeah, they were. Those would be some other fun people to cast, but we can
I
we can
know.
think about that.
Yeah.
Okay, so Debbie says, I love the piano scene. Hannah said you did a fabulous job creating perennials.
Thank you.
And then Dallas said, oh, he made a comment at the Savannah Book Festival.
I was going to say, is that
asked you,
Dallas? The Dallas
Yeah.
that I met
yeah,
3 times?
Dallas.
the Dallas is in the chat, and
Is in our book club.
yeah, and he said, someone asked you if you had a personal experience with the piano, and if it was priceless. Oh, I didn't know that's where
that's
that
kind of
question was.
personal.
Well, no,
That's
but I
kinda
haven't.
personal.
Someone did ask me if I had
Yeah.
experience, and I said no, but it's on my to-do list. So
There you go. And Ron Block, he did a nice definition of bumfuzzled for us. It's an adjective. In the state of bewilderment. I'm done. I'm dead.
love
Would
it.
you rather
And
I said
they're gonna
gobsmacked?
find your teacher too. We have several people are on it. They're like, we're gonna find this teacher.
And
There's
make
several
sure he
comments
knows.
about that.
That's hilarious.
Oh,
Yeah. There's a lot of everyone saying the piano scene's iconic. Yeah, the piano scene was a hit. So that's mainly what I'm seeing so far. Oh, Leah said she was stunned by the ending.
Oh,
Yeah.
and that's a good question. Did you know when you started the novel that it was going to end with Della making that sacrifice?
yes.
Okay, tell us about that.
Yeah, I knew that. Well, yeah. I knew it, but I was also dreading, actually, to be honest, I was dreading writing the last 40 or 50 pages because I was like, I have the idea of it. I don't know how I'm going to make all of this come together and not seem so dark. Like I had to figure out how to make Miss Della's sacrifice not be like she offed herself, like she killed herself, like in this tragic.
Right.
I don't think it is tragic. She was at the end of her life. She'd completed her bucket list. She was ready to go see Dr. Bennett,
Yeah.
But that was hard trying to, it was hard framing that in not a dark way. But yeah, I always knew that's where it was going.
There were a lot of tears over Miss Stella that we have a lot of comments about that in the chat. And I agree, like I know that it was tough, but I feel like her sacrifice made it beautiful in a way.
Yeah.
Because it was like she was giving them the chance to live.
Mhm.
And it was sad, but it was like, wow, that's the ultimate sacrifice. Like that's how much she loved them and thought about them for their future. And, so I think it was just so good and so well written.
Life. That was the other thing. Like it would have been a different kind of story if a 25-year-old had done that.
Right. Right. Exactly.
Right.
Right.
And someone who is not already, dying from an
Exactly.
illness that she did not want to
Mhm.
be helpless to.
Mm-hmm.
She
Yeah.
clearly wanted to be dignified in her, in her passing. So that did make it much more, I don't know, palatable in
Yes.
terms of not being dark.
Right.
Excuse me. Well,
It
if you
was her
don't mind,
choice.
do you have more from the chat, Lisa? Otherwise, I
Um,
was gonna.
no, you go ahead.
Okay. I was just gonna ask, you mentioned the Whirlwind Book Tour, and I just wondered if you would share any experiences you had from the tour. I mean, what was it like, meeting up with that many readers and on this Whirlwind tour?
It was completely surreal and just a dream come true. First of all, seeing the country in that way, like there are so many places I'd never been before. Um, I saw coyotes in Tucson. I was in the middle of a
Wow.
tornado warning in Indianapolis. Like there was so
Oh
many.
my.
Um, but yeah, what I loved was that people just took it upon themselves to start theme dressing. Like people would come in floral stuff or in purple, like dressed as the cover, or both. And it was like the coolest thing, or have their nails done like the cover. Um,
Uh,
People made me friendship bracelets, with Ricky's name, or um, it just seeing people inspired to express their love of the book in that way was so exciting. A woman in Houston showed up and had dyed her hair to match the cover. It was purple and teal ombre, and I dyed.
that's
And
so cool.
she was like, "Yeah." I was like, "Do you realize your hair matches my color?" She's like, "I do realize that because it's intentional." And she was like, "But don't try this at home. I'm a colorist," and so she actually is a. I met a couple who was taking the book to couples therapy to use it as an example of healthy couple conversations, which I could not believe.
Wow.
Wow.
And then I met a couple,
Oh, that's amazing.
who had no idea there was night blooming jasmine in the book, read the book, and then realized they have a night blooming jasmine garden in their backyard that they have been carefully cultivating for years. I was like, oh my God, that's magic, that brought them to the book. So yeah, really, really cool. Yeah.
That's so cool. I just knowing all of that was the love that you brought for this book, for readers, to your talent as an author. Like that has to just be a great feeling to know that your work has touched so many people.
It's fantastic. I still can't believe it. I'm still processing.
Like we said earlier, you deserve all the praise.
Thank you.
Um, I do have a question from the Dallas. I'm going to refer to him as the Dallas now.
Yeah.
But this is a interesting question. With an adaptation, would you want to write the screenplay yourself, or would you want to leave it to someone else because he imagines structuring the dual narrative in a screenplay might be difficult?
Yeah. A screenplay period is difficult. What's funny is that it is a completely different skill set.
Mhm.
I have author friends who did their own screenplay adaptations, and they had to go to like class to learn how to do it. And it's so at odds with how I write. Like I'm a very descriptive, very wordy, writer, and you have to be very spare, you have to pull back, and I can't see myself doing it. So no, maybe in the future, yeah, but not. Maybe you can write it, Dallas.
Lord help us.
That is hilarious. Uh, he might give it a try.
He might.
Um,
You never
he,
know.
he just might. Oh my
That's
goodness.
so
I
funny.
had a question that just went right out of my head. Oh dear, Lisa, you may have to save me.
Okay, you think, and
Okay, I'll think because it was something
I have
about
some
what you said
comments for
triggered.
Tia. Debbie says, I loved all the alliterations and puns. They're so There are so my thing, and I worked hard to have my own students weave into their writing, along with similes and metaphors. Thanks for adding such a unique strategy of clever humor.
Oh, thank you. I do love a pun. I do. It's the dad joke person that lives inside of me.
Oh, well, there were some awesome ones.
And Maria wanted to make the comment and said, when I heard our ancestors would show up and show out, I thought of the awesome Friends in Fiction book club, which was started in 2020. It's what all of our members do for authors. We show up, support, and show out. So just to give
Oh,
you a little background, Tia, that's our tagline. We show up and show out as
We
our
show
book
up
club.
and show out.
So when we saw that, I know I thought that too. I was like, yes, we do.
oh,
So
amazing.
she put that in the chat as well. Yeah, we do. And we have had quite a few members that have come to see you on your tour.
Oh,
And we just love it. I hope I get to. I missed you in Atlanta because I was in Savannah.
oh, okay. Oh man.
I know I missed. So
Oh, yeah, I hope to make
is
it
your
too.
tour done? Are you
Pretty
done
much
on tour?
now. Yeah.
Okay.
I have a few more festivals to do, but for the most part, yes, I'm home.
Okay. But if
Well, I
people
know
want
we're
to keep
getting,
up with, oh, sorry. People want to
no,
keep up
sorry.
with you and find out if you have any upcoming events, virtual or anything, they can do that on your Instagram and your
Yeah, they can,
website.
yep, on Instagram, the link in my bio, all the information is there. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, fabulous. Well, I know our time is running short. I can't believe it's
Oh,
5 minutes to 8. So we're almost out of time, but I wanted to follow up on one thing you said a moment ago. You were talking about how descriptive your language is and how hard it would be, how hard it is for you to cut. Were there any scenes that didn't make it into the book that you wish had?
Yeah, because I overwrite. There
No,
was
they underpublish.
they underpublish. You are absolutely correct. There was an outdoor sex scene in their garden.
ooh.
And it was very short but powerful. In the end, we cut it because we were like, it's February in New York. It's freezing. Would this really happen? Um, so it tested the limits of my imagination. So yeah, we ended up having to do that.
And is there any way at any point, maybe in another edition, we might be able to get a peek at that scene?
Maybe, except for that, my editor was right. It's cold. Like who would do it outside in February?
I mean, you never
There
know
could have been a warm spell.
It could have
if the
been a worse
moment
storm,
strikes.
or it's magic. Like maybe they just generated, their magical
Their
heat.
own heat.
Yeah,
That's
perhaps.
awesome. Another another question we've got to ask you before we let you go is what are you working on now? Can you tell us a little bit about your project?
So I just turned in the first draft of a YA novel. I don't know how many of your members have read 7 Days in June, but the protagonist had a 12-year-old daughter named Audrey. And so the YA novel is 4 years later. Audrey is 16. It's the summer after her junior year in high school.
Okay.
And she realizes that she's done all of the things. She's president of the class. She's captain of the debate club, like all this stuff, but she doesn't know how to have fun. So she hires a local bad boy to teach her how to have a good time.
Oh my God, I love it.
Ooh, that sounds
I can't.
awesome.
Yeah,
And
that sounds really good.
so we catch up
Heck
with
yeah.
3 years after 7 Days in June. So that's fun.
Oh, I love it. And
Oh
speaking of
yeah.
Days in June, we know Will Packer, who I'm a huge fan of, is
Mhm.
working on the adaptation there. Is there anything you can share?
Not really, not yet, but I it's going to be Amazon Prime Video, so that we know.
Nice.
Yeah, but because of the writer strike and the actors strike last summer, everything is, kind of
Hmm.
Yeah,
stuff on hold for a while. So we're catching up. So unfortunately, I don't have anything else to share right now, but hopefully I will soon.
that's awesome. We will stay tuned and we will keep our members informed because we know they want to know about that as well.
Great.
Yeah.
Um, Tia, it's been so much fun to have you on tonight and to be able to talk spoilers about this most amazing book with
Yes.
just so many twists and turns and complications. It just was unbelievable. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, and
Yeah.
we hope to see you soon.
I
Yes.
definitely
And
had a
I
ball with
want to thank you as well for being such an advocate for Black love and for Black stories and Black excellence. As a single woman of color, reading books like this gives me hope because I know you've mentioned before you didn't really see a lot of yourself in romance novels in the past. And
yeah.
we're finally at a place where we do. So I have to thank you for that because I'm all about a book boyfriend. And I'm telling you, you've had several that I like. Perfect Find. If y'all haven't seen the movie, read the book, read it, watch it. 7 Days in June, all of it. So I just want to thank you for that. That means a lot.
Oh, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. And thank you to
Yeah.
everyone who's tuning in. I'm so happy that you read the book and enjoyed it. Hopefully enjoyed it.
Oh,
We did.
absolutely. Oh, well, take care. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Tia.
Bye. Oh, yeah, we need to do one final. Love the book and the cover.
Yes.
You. Bye-bye.
Good
Take
night.
care. Bye bye.
Bye.
Oh, my goodness.
She's so like beautiful and talented and smart and all the things. It's
I
just,
know it.
I feel like we could have talked to her for another hour. And I know
Oh, I
there's
know.
questions in
Well,
the chat we didn't get to, guys. Sorry.
yeah, so sorry. There were just so many, again, I guess I sound like a broken record, but there were just so many things interwoven in there, and you don't really realize it until it all, kind of comes together, just navigating all of that while
Mhm.
keeping just the essence of Harlem Renaissance going in the novel. It was just amazing. So, wow.
Yeah, so good.
Don't even know
Um,
what to say.
yeah. Thanks for hanging in there
So,
with us, guys.
yeah, thanks so much. And one thing that we wanted to share, guys, and let me see if I can share it now. Okay. Is Tia has a playlist. And I don't know if
Yes, yes,
I shared that before, but um take a look at her playlist for a love song for Ricki Wilde. And there is a QR code at the bottom if you want to scan it to get the playlist. I'll leave it up here for a minute. Um,
yeah,
but just
yeah.
some awesome tunes.
Yeah, there's some great
Yeah, there's
songs
some
on
great
there.
songs on there.
It's really good. Really good.
All right, I'll stop sharing there.
I just loved this
And
book so much. I loved it so much.
yeah, I
Keep look-
really did.
It's a beautiful book. I keep, the cover, everything. Such a
Yeah.
good time.
Absolutely. And it was just so nice to be able to chat with her and talk about all of these amazing things and not have to worry about spoilers. That's another, nice note. So, Lisa,
Definitely.
we got some stuff coming up.
We do. Yes, we do. On
Yes, we
April
do.
15th, our next book club discussion is going to be with Zibby Owen, the Zibby Owens, about
Okay.
blank on April 15th.
Okay.
April 15th.
Yep. And in May, we
In
have Brenda.
May. Yep.
Yes,
Yep.
Brenda Novak coming to talk about tourist season. I'm really excited about that one too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And guess what's happening in June? Yay, we get to talk with MKA about her new work, Summers at the Saint, and I can't wait for that either.
I'm excited. Excited. It's always fun with MKA. But I want to announce something super fun as well. And that's on May
Okay.
9th. We have our happy hour with Ron Block and a surprise guest. However, when I say surprise guest, it's truly a surprise for me and Brenda because Ron is picking the guest this time, and we have no idea who it will be. So it's a
And
surprise guest. So May 9th.
payback is something.
Oh Lordy. May 9th at May 9th at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. So definitely mark your calendars for that as well. So thank you guys for joining us tonight. Oh, we
And
still
I
have
wanted to
people
say
hanging with us in the
that's
chat.
great. And I
Thanks,
wanted to say
guys.
thanks to everybody who has been posting about our book, our monthly read. We had so much engagement this month, people posting photos with the book, pictures of the book, quotes, things they liked about it. It's just, it
Yeah.
makes the experience all that much richer to share with everybody else.
Yes.
So thank you guys
thank
for
you.
that.
Definitely. We appreciate that. And you guys have a great rest of your night. Happy reading. And PB&J out.